Hey team, it's Grace from Graceful Bricks. And today I wanted to talk to you about the video that I released recently asking how anti-racist LEGO was. Now obviously, as a white person, I have not experienced racism. I have not been discriminated against based on the color of my skin. That means that I need to do a lot of work to be able to speak to this issue as an ally and as an informed anti-racist person. How do I do that work? Well, I watch Netflix. It's not that hard, and there's a lot of good stuff on there. Recently, I watched Amend. It was produced by Will Smith, and he was the narrator or the host on it, I guess. It was all about the 14th Amendment, which is declares all people equal under the law and allowing them due process. It's what was amended to the Constitution after the Civil War was ended, and it was designed to enshrine that racism was unjust in this country, in the United States. Now, the other show that I watched was Colin Kaepernick in Black and White. Colin Kaepernick, if you don't know, is a quarterback for the NFL on the 49ers, I believe. He took a knee during the national anthem, during some of the riots and the protests going on and the shooting of unarmed black people by police officers. And as a result, he was actually fired and banned from playing in the NFL. So this is about his life, and what struck me about these two films, they're both film series, so they're just short episodes, usually 40 minutes long, and there's about 5 or 6 in each. So I would highly recommend that you watch these. A lot of people in the United States, I live in Canada, but I get a lot of American content, obviously, considering we are their closest neighbor. A lot of people know a lot about the First Amendment or the Second Amendment, but not many people talk about the 14th, and certainly it wasn't part of my education growing up, considering that I am Canadian. So I learned about Canadian laws and whatnot. But it's a very important part of the Constitution in the United States. But the thing that struck me, a lot of things struck me, but one of the ones that I want to talk about today was the doll test. And the doll test was conducted in the 1940s by Kenneth and Mamie Clark. I highly recommend that if you don't watch either of those and Netflix series, that you look up information about the doll test. Basically, young children, white and black, were offered 2 dolls, a white one and a black one. And this, again, was in the 40s. These children were aged 3 to 7, typically. And they asked them questions like, which doll is good? Which doll is bad? Which doll, do you like better? These sorts of things. And what they found was that overwhelmingly, kids chose the white doll, regardless of their own racial background. And the kids also viewed the black doll as bad. In fact, this was so disconcerting for many kids that one of the last questions they asked was, which doll looks like you? And when black children were asked this, some of them burst into tears or ran out of the room because they were so upset that they looked like the bad black doll. And I bring this up because Lego has the same issue. We have dolls. We call them minifigs. And we have white ones and we have black ones. And the problem is that Lego has made these unequally. So society, and you may think, hey, that was the 40s, we've gone so much better, but it still applies. There have been recent studies conducted. I read about one where instead of interviewing the children, the scientists watched children play in a preschool setting. They offered them 4 dolls. A white one, a Latino one, a lighter-skinned black person, and then a dark-skinned black person. And they watched to see how the children play with each of the dolls. And they found that the white doll was chosen most of all. Rarely ever were the 2 black dolls ever played with. Kids would play with do the hair of the white doll or the Latino doll, and they would look at the other 2 dolls and they'd throw their hands up and cry exasperatedly, "Oh, this hair is too hard, it's so ugly." They would step on the black dolls to get to other toys. They would ignore the black dolls, drop them on the ground. Once one of the black dolls was put in a pot to be cooked, and this is in the 2000s. So obviously there are still inherent racist beliefs in small children, and these exist into adulthood. They don't go away at a certain age. And these are the unconscious or conscious beliefs that our society gives children. So if we're going to combat that, if we think that black people are equal to white people, we need to do better. And my particular area of interest is Lego. And as I point out, Lego is not doing enough. These white minifigures are prolific. Okay? Black minifigures are harder to come by. Which means that for kids to even have a representation of themselves, I talked in my last video about how heartbreaking it was for me to have a friend with a young black child looking for representation in their minifigs and saying, "I can't find it on the store shelves." But if we want to raise all children, regardless of gender or race, to be anti-racist, to not view the world through a racist lens, if we want them to be better, to be fairer and more equal than us, then what the heck is Lego doing to help with that? Because when I started realizing how racist Lego was, this was several years ago when I first got into Lego. And I realized it because I opened my bin of heads. And you know what? I'm going to go grab them to show you. I opened my bin of heads, and I found that most of the ones I had were yellow. I had a lot of white ones, because as you can see, we've got superheroes, we've got Star Wars. Sorry, I don't usually mix the two up, but I did. Star Wars, you've got superheroes, we've got Indiana Jones, we've got all kinds of themes where they're white. But if you look at the brown ones, that one's a coconut. This one is a werewolf. How about this one? That one's another animal. This one is an insect. These ones are blank. This one down here. This one is, it's a cannibal from the from the Pirates of the Caribbean series. Do we really want our only brown figures to be insects, monsters, animals, and cannibals? Is that what Lego thinks of black people? That black people are animals? That is some pretty messed up and outdated thinking. Like 1600s level of thinking. We've progressed. We understand society better. We understand people and their rights better. So in all that time, I have worked really hard, and I've had to spend a lot of money specifically to collect, to be able to show the representation that Lego has so skewed so badly. And that's meant I've had to spend money on Bricklink. I've had to order things directly from Bricks and Pieces. Rarely do I ever buy a set so that I can, where it has any racial parity, any equality showed. The problem with this is that even if we were to do the doll test, there's no dolls on the shelf for black people. And that's not fair. That's not good enough. That's not Lego doing the hard job, the hard work of trying to be anti-racist. That's them taking it easy, being a lazy company. They're just not producing it. They're ignoring half the population or more. Asian people, Latino people, black people, Middle Eastern people, other people who have darker skin pigments. They're ignoring them altogether. And they think somehow that if they put a hair that's got texture, that's got curls on a yellow minifig, that person is now black. But they're not. They're yellow. And yellow has been coded to mean white. I know that they will argue that. I know that a lot of fans will argue that. But I've shown pictures on my Instagram, and I'll show them here on the screen, of black minifigures coded as yellow. They just don't look right. And Lego understands that. The first time they actually did a black person was Lando Calrissian in Star Wars. Back in the late 90s or early 2000s. And you know what they did? They didn't make him yellow. They realized that yellow didn't cut it for Lando Calrissian, so they made him brown. Lego understands, whether they want to admit it or not, that yellow doesn't cover everyone. It doesn't cover black people. It doesn't cover Latino people. It doesn't adequately represent Asian people or South American people. It's just not good enough. Now, I like the yellow minifigs for posterity value, for nostalgia. I grew up with them, I like them, and I think Lego should keep them, but in a much smaller setting. Because if the kids can't play with diverse minifigures, then as they grow older, what do you think they're going to play with? You think they're going to search out the diversity, or are they going to stay in the mindset that they were taught that yellow's good enough, that diversity is hard, and I just don't have time for that effort? There's no reason to hurry and work hard for that. After all, aren't we past all this? The United States elected a black president. They've got laws on the books now. What's the problem? If you don't know what the problem is, you're part of the problem. Lego, if you honestly can't see the issue with not producing diverse minifigs, you're part of the problem. That's not good enough. Only the best is good enough. Check out Amend or In Black and White with Colin Kaepernick on Netflix. I promise you won't be wasting your time. This has been Grace from Graceful Bricks. I love you all. Please take care of yourselves. Try to smile if you can. Try to be nice to people if you can. Have a good day.